So it's 1 minute past 11. Very warm welcome to all the attendees in this webcast. We started Amable quite some time ago, prepared, and luckily in July we were able to publish the open call. And I guess your interest is the reason why you're attending this webinar today. You see on the screen a general overview of our Amable Services Arena. I will explain a little bit on that one. On the left side, you see the identifier. It's Amable Open Call 1, OC1. That's a formal name that was necessary to be assigned in order to list this call with the Commission. I will also explain how this works with the Commission and with us as the coordinator and as the consortium in the later part of this webinar. The headline that was set at the time when the Commission called for this activity was Digital Design for Additive Manufacturing, supporting the broad uptake of innovative additive manufacturing equipment and processes, particularly focusing on the link between design tools and production, changes in business models, process change, and stakeholder relations. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to focus on additive parts that can be used, so not those that stand on the desk and fill up your desks, but additive products that really make a change in the market. So the agenda for today is, as you see it on the screen, I have a short disclaimer about this webinar, then the project aims, the open call in a short story, then a little bit explanation on functional parts, experiment types, partners and roles, brokerage, because we try to also bring people together, and evaluation and implementation of the open call and the proposals that you might submit. Disclaimer. The content of this webcast, I need to remind you that all the formal information is found on the website. So no matter what I tell you today, it's only trying to illustrate what has been written there. The deadline, for example, has been published by some people differently, but it is October the 1st. So please look into those documents if you need any precise reference, if you need to relate to any information. However, we'll try to help you to understand the general setting as good as we can. The webcast is being recorded, and whatever is in it might be published at a later date. So I don't know if we will have the opportunity to open up your microphones in the question and answer session at the end of this webcast, or if we will try to read out comments that you might write to us. In the controller pane of this GoToWebinar tool, you have the option to use the chat area, and we will receive those questions if you write them to us. And as I say, we might read them out publicly, so please be aware if you write that this might be published. The documents to be taken into account, yes, there are 3 documents. I will also address those at a later date. This is the guide for applicants, proposal template, and the FSTP, financial support to third parties, contract template. As I said, I will reference those in the final section of this agenda. Let's start to have a look into Amable. The objectives of Amable in a 4-5 bullet row are to create a community of transparently connected digital innovation hubs. That means that all the competence centers that currently teamed up in Amable want to connect all people and all the designs and all the ideas to make the best use out of what we create here in Europe, and also to connect all the competencies and resources that we have. Evolute a set of complementary competence centers to source knowledge from regions to regions. So that means if, for example, actual printing is very strong in a region and design is strong in another region, connect those regions. So if you think about creating one of the proposals to our open calls, this would be a good idea to team up with people from other regions if they have different competencies. Develop a services arena with design brokerage, construction support, training, provide fast track to production. So what we want to achieve is to accelerate the transition from the idea to a first prototype. The services arena is our model to do that. So specially focused services that you can pick in order to advance with your idea towards your final goal. Provide business development support to enable early identification of high potential solutions. This has evolved already a little bit, so this business development support is also there to identify gaps in funding, to identify potential additional markets. So this is clearly also backing up the entire solution and the development to not only focus on technology, but also on the financial outcomes. Yes, and all over, this support the uptake of AM for functional parts in metals and plastics. I don't know if you're plastics guys, which are currently listening to us, or if you're plastics guys, but we generally cover all of those technology in additive manufacturing. Each of the competence centers might have a different focus. So we might have to put you into contact with a different competence center if, for example, you do polymer printing, or if you do plastics printing, or if you do high fidelity copper printing. So this depends on where you will go then. The set of competence centers and also our business partners are also displayed on the website. Here a short look onto it. There are specific tasks within the Amable project which are addressed by industrial partners. So, for example, Cisco and Industrial Data Space Association, they provide a good part of the data backbone that we're trying to create, and the business analysis and consultancy that's done by Keen Bull and the Pricewaterhouse entity Strategy End and Zabala if you go to funding. Training is executed by EWF. So we have some commercial partners in order to provide you also direct industrially relevant and industrial robust services at that point. Let's have a short look at the services arena. As I already told you, we break up our competencies and our services into such small blocks, like, for example, data analytics, visualization, business development. So no matter where you enter the services arena, if it is in concept stage, if it is in construct stage, so if you just want to print, so just want to make your design to become a real part, then you can select any of those services that apply to what you want to achieve. So what's necessary for you to think about is, what do I lack? Which competencies do I not have? So how can these guys in Amable support me in achieving my goal? If you don't know how to change your design to make it AM manufacturable, AMable, then you might want to select the Design for AM service on the top left. If you want to assess if what you already have printed as a sample can be printed at industrial scale, then you might want to select the industrialization service. So you have to think about what's necessary, what you need to complement what you know in order to achieve your goals. I picked two example services just to explain this very shortly. This is also included in the guide for applicants, so you can read through those descriptions. Here on the screen, it's our service which we numbered with 307. It's visualization and immersive design. And the main service offering is that you can visualize what your product is, what your product does. You can visualize what your product relates to if you have done a simulation, if there's distortion, if there are shrinkages to be expected. So to have a service that you perhaps can't do at home, to visualize those results, to visualize your models, and you can use that in order to derive design decisions for yourself. So if you, for example, would like to pre-distort your part in order to have it in the right shape once it comes out from the machine. The last point here, for example, under services key benefits is enabling product customization. This is another thing. So you can, for example, create variants of your product once you have visualized how it looks in the end. And if you put it into the area of operation where you think it will be used at a later stage, then you might want to do some changes. Another service is design for AM. This is, for example, key benefits to have cost-effective design. So to really assess the entire printing, finishing, and production related issues so that it can be easily be produced. To de-risk the build, so to predict, for example, or to run simulations, to recommend simulations, to detect errors in the build process so early that you can prevent them by changing the design. So these services can help you to advance from your idea to the final product. Let's have a short look at the data side of what Amable tries to do. You all know the first design starts mostly in your mind or on a piece of paper. So you have an idea and you sketch it on paper. How do you want to keep that paper? How do you want to document that that was originally your idea? The easiest way to do that would be to just create a scan of this sketch on paper, to create a hash key of this file, so from this PDF, for example, and then we want to offer you the option to link this hash key into the blockchain. So for all those who perhaps don't know what a blockchain is, very short thing, think of a chain. Each chain element is a set of data that is linked to some content, in our case. And you can never take one of these chain links out of the chain, otherwise the chain would break. So from the other point, you would always be able to reassess all these chain links. And if your sketch on paper is one of these chain links, then you can always refer to this chain link. You can always refer to this chain link and say, this was my sketch. And I can prove it by showing you the PDF with the scanned sketch. And then you can say, okay, at this date, I had created this document, which you see here, and you can relate to this chain link and demonstrate that this has been created at that time. So based on this idea, you could, for example, do this filing of sketches. You could also, for example, document changes in your construction. So if you, for example, change your part based on the visualization service, then you could file a record on one of these chain links that documents which kind of change you introduce into your product. And at any later stage, you can roll back and demonstrate that this change was done at that time. The benefit of that one is that you are secure against claims at a later state when you sell your product, and you have to demonstrate that you did look at all the critical points. Then you can prove, okay, I did all the assessments that were necessary. You have continuous documentation, and it's a perfectly transparent access to that data without showing the data in the first place. At the beginning of this talk, I told you you can scan your sketch and create a hash key. So you don't have to put your PDF file into this blockchain, but you can just put this hash key into the blockchain, as this hash key is directly linked to your sketch. So no one will be able to see the PDF file with your sketch unless you go, let's say, in a discussion with your user, or if you have to prove that you were right in court, for example. So it is your decision if you show your PDF or if you don't show it, but the proof that the PDF was there is always visible in the blockchain. How are we going to provide that service? We will create an Amable IDS connector. You might perhaps not have heard of the industrial data space. Very short explanation on this one. The main paradigm of the industrial data space is that data remains with the data owner. So you store the data, your CAD file, your sketch on paper, you store it on your servers, on your premises, or let's say you decide where you store it. If you store it on a memory stick, on a high security server, on your premises, or if you store it somewhere else. But it is under your command, so you remain the data owner. Now, you exchange data with, for example, us as a service provider. So if we would need to assess your CAD model, then we would need your data. So you decide at which point in time you transfer the data to us in order to operate on that data. And this is done through amable IDS connectors. So these IDS connectors, industrial data space connectors, are a piece of hardware that is registered, so registered with your identity, that has a root certificate from a certificate provider, and that only will connect to another IDS connector if both connectors agree. And you decide from which data you send a piece to another IDS connector. So not only that the data remains with you on your premises, but you also decide who you send which data. Today, if you would put that into an email, everyone could read that data if that email would be routed wrongly. With these IDS connectors, you have it fully under command to have a secure transmission through a secured encrypted channel from point to point. We call this the amable IDS connector because we have some speciality in this connector. So it builds on the Industrial Data Space Association's reference architecture, but we stuff it with a special part, which is here demarked in orange, that will be our color for the blockchain. So once you transfer your data, you can select if you want to lock this into the blockchain. So you can document that you transferred your data from your premises to our premises, and everyone will be able to see that data was transferred, not which data, but that data was transferred. So that way you can again continuously document what was done. Now, how can you involve? Amable plans 3 calls. The first call is a starting point for us to provide these services in year 1 and starting in year 2, and the other calls will be published in consecutive years. So you can expect, the first one was now in July, you can expect another call being published around March next year and another one the year after. And all that is going to provide additional resources, perhaps also different services. So we might change services over time, or we might get feedback from you that apply for the first call that services should be operated differently. So it's trying to build together with you a set of services where you can approach the competence centers and you get help and assistance in order to achieve your objectives. Now, how are you going to do that? The open call short story. This is, by the way, the following 2 slides, by the way, are also on the web server. So this is the teaser presentation, I think it's called, with a very short set of questions. Do you have an innovative idea for a functional part that needs AM to become alive? So the core of what we want to support is the functional part that needs AM, so that can only build by AM. The second thing is, yes, you can get support from the European Additive Manufacturing Competence Centers, that is the partners in Amable, for different things I already explained, so design, testing, simulation, scale up, certification, training, and all these services. And you get funding for it as well. So it is done through a mechanism called financial support to third parties. I'll explain that later. But basically, there's funding available to support you in executing the risky part of the development. And we, as the consortium, will support you in doing the right decisions, in doing the right steps, and executing the work that should lead you to success. What do you need to do? Write up your story. That's pretty easy, I guess. Present your first adopting user. That might be a bit difficult because for that we also want to provide you a brokerage service, but you might have your first user in mind. So you might even have a request from a user. Could you print that? Could you create this for me? And that's for us very, very important. So we definitely need a user that defines what's necessary so that you or that the supplier can provide a solution. Point number 2, present your business case. If there's no business case, you won't get support for sure. So the idea is to really support activities that create a benefit for Europe, that create a benefit for companies in Europe. So in 3, you have detail your development plan, identify the risks, determine success factors. So these things are all in the proposal template, and we ask you to provide information on that. So these 2 slides are the very easy ones, but as I said, I'll now explain some of these in a bit more detail. Functional parts. We have currently on the website a few use cases that we named sample use cases. So use cases that some of our partners did already execute, and we try to describe on how we think Amable could have helped them. For example, here you see the optimized motorbike fork end. That's a part that needs to be light, needs to be very stiff. And there was done optimization. There was a testing with a titanium-based production on EVM. And you see also the benefits, like was 50 grams lighter. Okay, I guess perhaps a little bit more expensive, but for the use case, it was the best solution, and it was done by AM. So here you see one of those, for example, experiments that could have been a case. Vinyl disc cartridge, for example, I love this very much because I'm very much into music. So the Autophone guys, they asked themselves, can we create a lighter and a better cartridge? They collaborated with DTI, and they came up with a very good design that supported their high performance audio systems. Again, there's a business case behind, so people using high fidelity audio, being prepared to pay a bit more, and a solution that really provides much better audio replay. Another case. So if you have a case, then it should be somehow in line with such a sample use case that we provide on the website. Assess your idea yourself, and you see what we mean by having a technical challenge, having a work plan, and having a benefit. Experiment types, partners, and roles. This perhaps goes already a little bit too much into detail for today. So only very briefly, we have 4 phases. An entry phase where we establish the objectives, where we reassess the business case that you described. Then we have an execution, so where we do the development, where we assist you in doing your developments. We have an evaluation phase where we expect that the solution is being validated or evaluated. And then the 4th one is something like a resume of your experiment. What's important on the bottom here, the table experiments, we have defined 2 different experiment types. The one is a feasibility study, so a very early TRL levels. So if you just have an idea and if you want to see if it could work, then this might consume or might need 1 to 3 services, should be in a frame of 3 to 6 months, and we would expect that between 5 and 20,000 euros should be or would need to be invested on work in order to come up with a solution with a result of such a feasibility study experiment. Now, it will strongly depend on your specific case. If you are more on the 5K side, or if you would need more like 20,000 euros to execute your work, but you still need to describe what kind of work you want to execute. So the evaluation of your proposal will look at that and will try to figure out if that is realistic. Best practice experiment now is more in the range from 4 to 8 TRL. So this goes pretty close to real production. I could use a number of services from 2 to some more. Could last until 12 months or so. We would not like to see anything longer than 12 months, because then you would cross our call schedule and the cost would definitely be a bit higher. Now, these roles that I already related to in such an experiment, there are 3 entities that need to be involved in an experiment. The first one, and that's the one we want to support most, is the SME supplier. I think in the call for, and so in the documents, that's also written that the SME supplier should receive 80% of the budget. The end user should receive 20% maximum of the budget. So the supplier is the one who should execute most of the work. The amable tutor is helping the SME supplier to talk to the end user and to implement all the changes through the services. So the tutor is guiding you through the services. He is accompanying you from the start of the assessment of the experiment until the end. The user should be from industry or should be representing the relevant markets. So in some markets, we guess there are no real industrial companies like don't know, 2,000 people businesses, but might be more mid-caps or even SMEs if they address only a very small market. But the end user should be representative for that market that you want to address as a supplier. The supplier should be the one who will later on create, build, and sell the solution. So the one who is interested in realizing his business case. These 3 team up a amable experiment. As I said, the tutor will guide you through the services. The services again will be offered by competence centers. Now, brokerage, how to get a tutor. The easiest way is you know one person in one of the competence centers and you discuss with them which tutor would be the best one for you. So for example, if you would say, I want to print plastics and let's ask Fraunhofer ILT, then I would tell you, okay, plastics is currently not our main business. We are more in metals, but I know someone in the consortium that is very good in plastics. So this way you could find a good tutor. The other option would be just to describe your case and send an email to this email address that's on the screen, tutors@amable.eu. This one is also referenced in the guide for applicants. So you could do the formal way and describe your case and ask, hey, who would be the best tutor for me? Now, if you are either a supplier or an end user, so either you have a need or you have an idea, you might want to find the other partner in this game. You can send an email to brokerage@amable.eu. We also currently think about creating a web-based form where you can enter your information. What we would do with either the email or with this form from the web is that we would write a short story based on that one and publish them under an anonymous ID so that we can get other people to read it, other people to address this, and so that you would get some feedback from us if there are people interested in teaming up with you. So that's a service that you should try to use, that you should consider to use if you are not already in talk with your other partner. Let's go to evaluation and implementation. The evaluation process of your proposals, so the documents that you send to us through the call for proposals at amable.eu, these proposals are going to be evaluated by external experts. We're currently calling for evaluators, might also have seen that. So if you're an expert and if you don't submit a proposal, then you can also apply as an evaluator. And we will evaluate those proposals through these people and get a set of marks back for your proposal. That leads to an internal listing according to the rules that are also set out in the guide for applicants. Below, you see the evaluation criteria. Again, in the guide for applicants, there's also an explanation of these. So relevance to European economy. So does it support the economy? Does it support a company? Does it bring about additional financial revenues? Impact of the experiment and the anticipated result. Excellence of the idea and approach. So comparing it to the state of the art, is it really a good leap forward or is it just a standard? So it needs to be innovative, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. That's what I already referenced. So is the calculation that you did for your experiment, is the calculation of resources that you would need for it okay, efficient, and if the quality is there. So all these criteria have the same weight as you see on the last column, and the threshold is same as in Horizon 2020 evaluations, is 3 out of 5. So you need a mark of 3 to at least pass this threshold, and after that you get somehow into the listing. Now, what is financial support to third parties? If you know Horizon 2020, then you might only know partnerships. So then you're a formal partner of a consortium. You have to sign the grant agreement, so the contract with the Commission, and you have to sign a contract with all the partners. FSTP, financial support to third parties, works a bit different. Here, the project coordinator acts on behalf of the European Commission. So in this case, for Amable, it's from IoT. So we do a contract with you based on the Horizon 2020 rules on behalf of the Commission. You collaborate with the consortium partners to deliver the planned work, and you report to the consortium, and we as a consortium again report to the Commission. So the only difference in this one, this FSTP, is that you don't sign with the Commission but with Fraunhofer IoT, and that we deal with the rest. The Commission believes this is much faster. The rules under which this work has to be executed are quite the same, just additional workload for the coordinator. Yeah, but we would also hope that it is less trouble for you, because we can help you more easily in order to get things sorted. Please note that there's a contract template also on the web server. This is the one you would have to sign, so please have a look through it if it's okay for you. Otherwise, please don't apply. General conditions: the call identifier Amable OC1, deadline 1st of October, 1700 Brussels time. Total budget that is allocated for this call is 750,000 euros, but it is not a one winner takes it all, but it's scheduled in these budgets that we displayed in this table for the experiments. Funding rate is 70% of eligible cost. So all the cost, like the direct cost of consumables, travel, and so on. And here again, there's a reference to the type of experiments that are being called. Experimentation team, again, short repetition. SME with an innovative AM product idea in the supplier role, an SME or a mid-cap as a first, or an industrial, as a first user of the product in the user role, the Amable RTD partner as a tutor in the tutor role. Call documents can be found on amable.eu/calls/call-4-proposals. And there's also currently an FAQ, so frequently asked questions list on the server, which might answer a few additional questions that you might have. So have a look into that one as well. That's a button on the call for proposals page. Contact for tutor assignment, tutors@amable.eu, and submission and inquiries. So if you have any formal inquiries, please be also aware that we might derive frequently asked questions from what you ask there in order to support all people equally with replies. So call for proposals at amable.eu. And that's also the final slide for today. I hope you get a better overview about what we call for, so functional parts that are innovative, that need AM. We look for SMEs that currently do not have the full capability of executing the work themselves, so that need support through services, which want to select services that complement their competencies. If they need training, they can also need training. All what's necessary to support such SMEs to take up additive manufacturing is something we want to work for. The budget for this available in this call is 750,000 euros. You may have feasibility studies or best practice experiments, and you should write up your idea based on the template that's available on the website and submit it before October the 1st. We might have a few minutes more today in order to see if you have any questions, if you would like any additional information. If this should not be the case, then please send us an email if these questions come up later to the call for proposals email address, or contact one of the competence centers. What we also plan is to provide some direct contacts to those competence centers in the near future. So you might want to revisit our website and look in the partners section or in the call section if there's additional information available. Thanks for now and have a great week. Bye-bye.